All right. We Hello everyone. If there's anyone watching, there's three people. That one of them might be you. Uh,
Hey, I mean, yeah, I guess it probably is, but
but that's okay. Someone has
yeah.
to watch us. Well, welcome people to this interview with the game professor himself, Sam Gronseth. Welcome.
Hi, that's me.
Thank you for
Happy to be here.
gracing me with your presence tonight. Um, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Got off work, came home, and ate while I watched DuckTales with my wife, and now I'm here.
Nice,
So
nice. Well, which Ducktales?
the new one
The new
we've
one.
been watching through. Yeah, we've been watching through it. We're in season 2 right now,
Yeah.
so it's extremely good.
Is it?
We both love it a lot. Yeah, yeah, definitely into it.
Yeah, I'll have to get.
Kids animation's come a long way since the original show, so like, yeah, it's they did a really good job updating it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the original's got good animation. I'd say. You
Oh
know.
yeah, no, it's not a bad show by any means. I
Right.
loved it as a kid, and I actually plan on watching the movie at some point because it's on Disney Plus, and I
Yeah.
remember loving it as a child. But
We.
yeah, no, they've done a lot. Webby is amazing
Mm,
now. Like she was kind of a nothing character originally, but
right.
she's probably my favorite in this one. It's
Mm.
very good.
I didn't know they had a movie, but
Yeah, it's Legend of the Lost Lamp, I think, or something like that.
oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I rented it a lot as a child when we'd go to the video rental store
Right.
because I'm old.
We had those. I'm not too much younger, I believe. I'm 24. That is
Yeah,
how
6 years
old I am.
younger than me then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. All right. Well, let's get started. Usually, I just
Yeah.
talk about YouTube related stuff. I figured that's what the fans want to hear about. So,
Right.
I guess I'll start kind of at the beginning, but a little bit before the beginning. How did you get to be able to teach, like a high school class on video games? Like, how was that even an opportunity presented to you?
A number of good targets and lucky scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I When I was in college, I majored in English with a writing specialty, and my there was one particular professor that I loved video games and
Mm-hmm.
specifically as a storytelling medium back then. So and now obviously, but there was one particular English professor that I really managed to get that idea into his head. The
Yeah.
guy's never played a video game in his life, but like he really sort of bought into the idea that video games are an interesting and unique way of telling stories. And um, he was my professor for my senior seminar class, which is where we would do our senior projects. So when I was about to graduate, my senior project was to design a literature class using video games instead of books. And I mean, I did, and it was very much a prototype. There were a lot of things that when I later did get to teach, it didn't, that changed when
Yeah.
I had to actually make it functional. It's really hard actually designing a class but that's kind of another topic. So when I graduated, I went back home to my little town in Northern California that actually is barely even there anymore.
Yeah. I remember you tweeted that out. I'm so sorry about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, Paradise, California was destroyed in the Camp Fire last year. It's still there. There's still some houses and stuff there, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
that was a whole thing.
What did those families do? Like, if I imagine like most of the like grocery stores and like basically the stuff that makes it a town is gone. Like, did they just sell
Yeah,
or
I mean, it's really hard to sell because no one's going to
right?
buy property in a
Yeah.
town that like there was severe
Duh.
infrastructure damage and stuff
Yeah. I just
too, like the water, electricity, all of his compromised.
yeah I just pulled a Ben Shapiro, right? Like, yeah, who's gonna buy the property after global warming happens? Like, Jesus.
Aquaman. It's very good. Um, but yeah, no, it's tough. There are some people still sticking it out, but a lot of other people, including most of my family, have moved away,
Yeah.
and everyone else who's still kind of stuck there but doesn't have a home anymore is in Chico, the larger town nearby,
Oh,
and it's just super overcrowded and rent prices are absurd. Like it's a pretty bad scenario,
yeah.
honestly. Um, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Sorry.
I no,
To ask.
it happens. It's
Yeah.
been like a year and a half at this point. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went back there after college and was just living with my family until I figured out what I was going to do. Um, and I approached a charter school that I had gone to briefly in high school. It was like a home study charter school. It it was meant to sort of give parents who wanted to homeschool their kids a sort of like midway alternative, I guess, so that like they're still doing state sponsored stuff, and actually, schooling kids properly, but had a little bit more option to some of the flexibility that homeschooling offers. And since I knew some of the people there, I went there and said, hey, I made this class and I've graduated now. I'd like to teach it if I could. And I could also do some other things like game design and media production, video editing, stuff like that. So, yeah, they went ahead and put me on. And that was part of my luck, that it was a place that I knew to some extent, and that it was a charter school, because they're generally a little more flexible.
Yeah.
Like my English class wasn't like a kid couldn't take it in place of an actual literature class. Sorry, actual literature class. Because I wasn't a credentialed teacher. That's sort of my big mistake, is that I didn't realize that I would really love teaching when I was in school, so I didn't go for a teaching credential, and now it is stupid expensive to get one, so I'd someday maybe. But anyway, yeah, I got to teach there part-time for 2 years, did the literature class, the games as lit class both times, and then found another charter school in the area too where I could teach it. So yeah, it was honestly it was just a really, really cool experience. I liked it a lot, and it gave me a good opportunity to sort of hone some of the ideas that I'd been throwing around in my mind all throughout college and ever since liking video games, really, about not just how storytelling works, but how it works in an interactive context, and to pass that on to people. And it was a really rewarding experience.
Right. Yeah, I was because I feel like you've mentioned somewhere that you just got an English degree, and I was like, how did he even get to teach a class without being accredited? But okay, that makes sense. Yeah, in a scenario like that, you can do it part-time, and if it's not I forget what they called them, but like a core class, it has to be an elective, essentially. So, it worked for that. And I'd like to go, well, rather, one of my potential future prospects is to eventually go back to school and get something like that, so I can pursue that as a career. Right. It's just, once you've got a bachelor's degree, it's really expensive to go back, and you can't get any financial aid pretty much. So, right. Yeah, that's the scary part. As someone who just graduated with an English degree as well. Yeah.
I hope that you fare better than I did in terms of jobs related to your field.
Yeah.
It's not a good job market out there in general right now, but
yeah, no, I realize I have to probably settle. Or go so hard at this YouTube stuff and somehow bank on Patreon, you know what I mean? And that's like, yeah, that's scary.
It's difficult when you can't put your effort into it full time. I know that from experience.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. So like, what would you do in the class if, like, what was the sort of curriculum?
I mean, really, on a basic level, you can sort of just think of a literature class you've had, but instead of reading a book, it's a video game.
Right.
And it works pretty much the same way. I would the first little while of the class was sort of talking about a lot of storytelling basics, because even in high school, a lot of kids just don't have much of a grasp on that sort of thing. And then, I'd assign a game, like Bastion was one of the ones I had in there. And I had, and this was the really hard part about designing the class, is that there's no, like, in college, or even high school, when you take a literature class, you have books that are either provided for you by the high school or something, or you have those giant like anthologies of American short stories for your American lit class or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for video games. There's nothing like it. I was lucky enough to have the school give me a bit of a budget to purchase some games on Steam. And so I made a bunch of Steam accounts and basically just set in the class to computer games to Steam accounts that had the games that they had to play on. And it wasn't an ideal solution, but it worked well enough. And so, they would play the game, and I'd give them, a week or two or whatever, depending on how long the game was. And during that time, we would talk about ideas directly related to the game. Like, there was a point where they played Portal. Mm-hmm. We talked about first-person storytelling and environmental storytelling and things like that. And then, once they had played the game, I gave them an extremely brief and simple test, basically to just test whether, like, tests aren't good for English classes, generally speaking, but I just gave them a really short one just to, I guess, be sure that they played it,
Yeah, right.
I gave them an incentive to not just skip, which, it's literally, their homework was to play video games, but you'd be surprised how many kids still didn't.
I mean, was
Yeah.
like having the hardware a problem? Like how many kids like didn't
For the
have like
most part, no.
okay.
The school also had a computer lab, and
Oh,
I think most, if not all, of the games were Mac compatible, which Macs are the kind that they had there.
yeah.
So like, and if any of the kids did have a problem with it, I would talk to them. There was one instance where they played Beyond Good and Evil
Yeah.
actually, and I had also, in addition to getting it onto Steam, gotten a couple PS2 and Xbox and GameCube copies in
Hmm.
case they had any systems. Because this was back when like that next generation was still common. So if they had a Wii, they could play it on GameCube, stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
So it was there was really no very good solution because, like I said, there's no like video games aren't packaged
Mm,
like that. But it worked well enough for everyone. They all, I made sure that they all had the ability to play the games they had to play at least.
right.
But yeah, and then after that, we'd talk a bit about the game, have a week or two of discussion about that, and then I would give them a prompt, an essay prompt. And it was really interesting because at first and I've made some like threads about this on Twitter and stuff, but like they basically wrote me reviews
Hmm.
for the
Oh, of
first
course.
long while. I'd give specifically like, hey, so write an essay about how the narrator in Bastion is used to involve the player in the world of the game and stuff like that. And they'd be like, Bastion was a cool, fun game that I liked. I give it 7 out of 10. And I was like, that's not how this works.
Right.
Don't do it. And that's part of why it was such a rewarding experience, I think, because I think that kids are sort of trained not to see value in video games. They're trained to see it as a fun waste of time that they shouldn't spend too much time on because they're worthless. And
Right.
that experience only solidified that because that they were approaching them at first. It was like pulling teeth to get them to talk about the story instead of that time a glitch happened and it annoyed them or something. But they eventually got used to it,
Yeah.
and it was really rewarding to see the essays morph from half-baked reviews into actual explorations of the narrative content. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's essentially what it was. After a few weeks of just talking about basic storytelling stuff and interactive storytelling stuff, it was just play a game, talk about the game, essay about the game till the end of the school year for the most part.
Yeah. And so it sounds like a lot of what we see on your channel, like for a lot of the literary analyses, that's kind of what you covered in the class.
Yeah. The early ones especially were actually very much based on what I had taught. Beyond Good and Evil, Prince of Persia, Bastion, Portal. I covered all those games in the class on at least one occasion, and sort of because the show was, well, it was a mix of two things. I was hoping, and I was actually working with another teacher at the very beginning on this, but it never quite developed, and then I moved, and but I was hoping that this might eventually lead into some kind of curriculum because I wanted to fix that problem of not having an easy collection of games for teaching, and that still doesn't exist. And I think it'd be pretty like I feel like Humble Bundle or something could easily come up with something like that, but it hasn't happened yet. But there was that, and then there came a point where part-time teaching wasn't really viable anymore. My wife got a job offer at a town like an hour and a half away or so, and it just kind of came to a point where it wasn't viable for me to keep doing that. But I wanted to still have a way to express this and talk about it and hopefully reach some others with it. So I did the show with that. And yeah, the early show is very, very much based on lessons that I had in the class.
Yeah. And then how involved has Jimmy, your wife, how involved has she been in like the channel and like the videos and stuff? Like, is she just a camera person, or does she like help edit, and like how involved is she?
She doesn't help edit. The thing is that she has a lot of stuff going on too, but we both help each other in our creative endeavors.
I guess I meant like editing like the scripts and stuff, not necessarily the videos.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't none of my videos make it to the filming stage without her having at least read it and given me feedback. And so yeah, she helps with that. She sets up the camera angles because she has a better visual eye than me, just generally speaking. She does all the art and sort of design stuff for the channel. And whenever I'm filming, it used to be that she would actually push the button at the beginning of each one so that I could stay seated and not risk messing everything up or whatever. But thankfully, we got a a little remote for a camera a little while ago, so I can do
Right.
that. But she's still always in the room filming and making sure that it doesn't. When I first filmed the Prince of Persia episode, our camera, like the screen faces, backward. Like if you're holding it, you can see the screen, but not if you're on the other side of it.
Right.
So I can see if it's recording for sure. And when I first filmed the Prince of Persia analysis, I accidentally, like, I must have not turned it off when I thought I had or something, because most of my footage was gone because I'd only filmed the in between parts instead of the parts I was trying to film. So ever since then, I'm paranoid about that. So she's always in the room just watching to make sure, like, yep, it's going.
Yeah.
Making sure that my hair isn't doing something stupid, because it really likes to do stupid things. So yeah, no, she's a major help when I'm filming. The fact that the show looks anywhere near as good as it does, visually speaking, is pretty much entirely on her.
Yeah.
And having her insight when I'm working to write the things is also extremely valuable. She's incredibly supportive, and the show either wouldn't exist or wouldn't exist nearly as well without her around.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, your hair, definitely some of the best hair in the game. Period. Like even the long, I'm a fan of long hair, so I just appreciated it. I always appreciated it. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
And what was I gonna say? Frick. Oh yeah. How was it, like, hard to film in front of her at first? Like, as someone who makes videos and has done like live action stuff, I feel like awful making someone listen to me speak at all on a video, unless it's like goofy or whatever. But like once it's like scripted
Right.
and like supposed to be thoughtful and stuff, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
so sorry. So I don't know if that
Um,
was a problem for you.
I mean, at first, it's filming with or without anyone else is kind of awkward at first. Like, and yeah, adding anyone else into the room does sort of increase that, because you're suddenly a little more sharply aware of, like, oh, what if I sound stupid? What if I say
Yeah.
the wrong thing? But she and I have always, like, our premarital counselors described us as disgustingly compatible. Like, she and I have always been just an extremely good
Yeah.
team. We've always understood each other perfectly, communicated very well. So there's very little, if any, awkwardness between the two of us in any scenario whatsoever. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe a little bit, but it wasn't much of an obstacle to overcome, honestly. Listening to myself while I was editing was much harder, actually. And if I may say so, Jimmy is pretty used to listening to me blab on about things.
That's fair.
I process by talking a lot of the time. Yeah. I'm, that nerdy kid who sort of had to learn when someone wasn't interested in what you were talking about and when you should just shut up. So being with someone you're really in sync with and who understands you brings out that side of me. And she's very much used to just hearing me sort of talk out my thoughts on whatever game I'm playing or whatever. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I also want to ask, going back to sort of the class and stuff, like, did you find, like, so you kind of have your voice pretty immediately, like, making your channel, right? Like, I don't feel like this is going to sound bad, but like, it doesn't feel like your voice has evolved. It feels like you kind of had it. Like, you just had your voice, like, at least, like, sort of verbally, maybe not like writing and style, but like, it just felt like you were so comfortable at first. And was that from teaching? Like, did you kind of take how you presented yourself as a teacher and make it the videos, or is it sort of different? Or
I think it's sort of a mix between that and my writing style. I have definitely some writing stuff too, and more perspective than writing, I guess. But for the most part, I feel like I see what you're saying, and I feel like it's a mix between my teaching, because I had been teaching for like 2 years before making the show. So I think it was sort of a mix between that and the fact that my writing style has always sort of been similar to my speaking style, just better. I'm not very good at speaking off the cuff, but I don't know. I wrote the series and always have written the series very just kind of as I naturally talk.
Yeah, that definitely comes across. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's just like as
I hadn't thought of any of this, honestly. Like my voice not really evolving over time, but I guess I can see how that's the case.
right. It's not like a bad thing. It's just like,
Right.
it's a unique thing where it's like, damn, you found it immediately. As someone who like
Yeah.
who's still to I haven't made that many videos, but like who still is like, what? How should I like speak? What cadence should I even use? Like
Ah.
how like funny should I be? And part of it's like I don't know what people want. I don't know what will retain people. I'm worried about
Yeah.
retention now. That sucks. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so
Honestly, I've never been all that good about thinking about that thing, and so I don't as nearly as much as I should. Like, I don't know. Plus, there's the weird thing of like whenever I've done something timely or whatever, it hasn't worked
really,
for some reason. Yeah, like I've made a few videos specifically like, oh, this is a big thing right now. I'll release a video during like the top search engine optimization period, and nothing happens. And then I make an analysis of Little Inferno and I get a giant subscriber boost. Like, I
right.
can't figure out what it is that. So I mostly just kind of do my thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I will say my humor has gotten a lot better on the show, mostly because I stopped trying to force it in and only do it when it's natural.
Mhm.
It wasn't early episodes at stabs at humor weren't great, honestly, and yeah.
I mean, it's got its charm, I will say.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what-
and we grow as a channel. If the videos I was making 5 years ago are exactly the same as I'm making now, it would be weird. So
right. Yeah, definitely.
Hi. Sorry, Jimmy is here to deliver coffee. We were talking about you a little while ago.
OMG.
Hi.
Hey, Pickett. Here, I'll add a dog to the stream to improve.
Mhm.
This is Pickett.
Hell yeah.
He's a very good dog. He's extremely nervous, especially when I hold him. So
He's
Here
as
he is.
white as a fence. A picket fence.
oh yes, extreme. Pickett, that's true.
There we go.
So anyway, so now that we have like 5 million viewers, good dog. Zuzu, get out of the way. The other dog that we're dog sitting for right now is famously stupid, so
Oh, good.
that's funny. She's a good dog, just hilariously dumb.
Yeah. Okay, where am I? Who am I? Shoot. I'm
Sorry,
really-
didn't mean to derail you with my coffee
No,
and dog.
no, it's okay. There was nothing we could do. Let's see. So I guess talking about the beginning of your channel, who besides probably one channel I know, but who inspired you? Like
Yeah.
did like YouTube channels inspire you, or was it just the classroom? And I guess like
I
even
mean-
if you didn't like start it because of YouTube channels, like who informed your style and like stuff like that.
Existing, it was essentially two things. The sort of analytical video essay format was largely inspired by existing YouTube channels that I admired at the time. Errant Signal for video games, as an example, and Extra Credits. And then, oh boy, this one hasn't aged all that well. But I was a pretty big fan of a lot of shows on Channel Awesome
Yeah.
at the time, and
We all were.
that's a whole thing. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's easy to like pretend that it was never good or interesting or whatever, but like,
No, I would
No,
watch
it's,
I'd watch his extra stuff. I would like go to his
Yeah.
website and watch like him just talk about like Avatar the Last. You know what I mean? Like
oh well, I mean, watching critics watch Avatar for the first time is just always a transcendent
Right.
experience. That show is so good.
yeah.
But yeah, so there were a lot of like there's how much of a nostalgia critic there is in my presentation necessarily, since his show is very just kind of frantic and humor oriented, and mine obviously isn't. My
Well,
content was more inspired by people like Kyle Calgren,
yeah.
who
Okay.
was also there at the time. But I wouldn't lie if there's not a little bit of nostalgia in the basic format of going through the story and then talking about it. Which again, that inspiration hasn't aged all that well, but it is what it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
do wear a blazer, so
Yes, that yeah. Well,
Mhm.
That's is the thing I own when I started the show was the thing I owned the most professorally, so I went
Right.
with it.
And then would you like is there anyone now that you're watching that you're like trying to get inspiration, like even if you're not like
Um,
directly putting it in, but you're just like, you know what, these people make me want to make videos and make them good
I mean, some of the
people.
same people, honestly,
Yeah.
like Kyle Calgren, still Lindsay Ellis.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously a very big influence. And then there's still like some really great game commentators that like I'll watch their not commentators. That's the wrong word, but like, I still really enjoy Aaron Signal's content
Yeah.
and well, him, um, Red Angel and MC Profit. I did a
Yeah.
very brief podcast
I
with
was
the
going to
three of
ask
them, and
about
I
that
really
actually.
like all the content. Yeah, no, they're all great. There are sometimes there's like an analytical story based internet video that just kind of makes me think, man, I wish I could ever make anything half that good. And
Mm.
MC Profit's Twilight Princess video is one of them. Um, oh gosh, why am I forgetting? There's someone who used to be on Channel Awesome and since then has. Why am I forgetting his name? Transitioned and works for Anime News Network now. Jake something. He did a video series on Digimon Tamers that
Okay.
blew my freaking mind. Also, there are some. Essentially, there's some creators that I still respect, and then every now and again, someone makes a video that just like makes me wish I would ever do anything that good.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to ask about the podcast that you did. How did that come about, to come to fruition? Who like initiated, you know?
I initiated.
Yeah.
I was familiar with the content of everyone involved, and thought something. And we did for a little. I was honestly really surprised because I wasn't even as big then as I am now, and I'm not very, very big now. So I was kind of surprised when when Aaron Signal actually didn't do it, but eventually, like unfortunately, only a few episodes in, there showed up a lot of difficult life problems that various members of it had to work through, and it
Yeah.
just kind of never managed to come back together afterwards. But it was fun while it lasted, and I still have a working relationship with them also.
Right. Well, I'm glad you got something out. I mean, at least a few episodes out and had a good time. Um,
Yeah,
let's see.
that was good. I'm doing something sort of similar now with patrons. Actually, there's a Patreon that to a like monthly game where we're talking about games and
Oh,
stuff.
right.
I'm planning on editing some of our discussion, something that I can put on the internet, but I'm trying to get back into making more videos first.
Right.
It'll be soon.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of something that might be a sore spot to ask about, but so clearly when you started, you had quite the prolific output. Weekly
Yeah,
video, I believe weekly, right? Like, or at least bi-weekly or
weekly
something.
videos and monthly analyses. Yeah.
Right. How are you
Yeah.
physically capable of pulling that off? That seems like, personally, that sounds ridiculous. Especially when
No,
you
when
gotta
I
like film yourself and like record, gameplay and stuff,
yeah,
or at least like edit all the gameplay that you get together.
yeah, yeah. Well, part of it was that I got a month's videos done in advance before I even published anything on the channel, and I tried my best to keep that up. Part of it also was that I was only working part time when I started the series.
Okay.
So I still had a decent amount of time that I could be putting into it.
Mm.
Um, Also, I had, since a lot of those early episodes were based on lesson plans essentially from my class. um I had a lot of the content sort of ready. I just
Right.
kind of had to take the notes that I had from that and some of the interesting things that I thought of since then, or that came up in conversation during class, and put them into a video. And it was relatively simple.
Yeah.
But over time, two things happened. One, like we moved and I got another job and I got a full-time job.
Yeah.
Three things, I guess, maybe two. That full-time job was awful. It paid very well. It paid off my student loans.
Hey.
I'm glad it happened, but it was terrible. I hated it, and it really drained me, like physically, mentally, creatively, and then also like I ran out of that pretty basic, like, here's how storytelling works when you're part of.
Yeah.
Not to say that the show has covered every possible subject or anything, obviously, but it was easy enough early on to be like, hey, let's talk about linear versus open worlds. Let's talk about story structure.
Right.
And all of that sort of basic educational content. I feel like I mined that field fairly well,
Right.
which means that I can't quite so easily just, like, here, I'll look at my education notes and come out with this video on a subject that I already know a lot about. It has to be more specific, more work time intensive, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So between all those things, I wasn't about that schedule anymore, and over time, various life circumstances have not necessarily gotten easy, and life's complicated.
Yeah.
But I love making the show, so I'm, yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate you making the show. It feels weird that you've only been around since 2015, right? 2015?
I think so.
Yeah.
It might have been late 2014.
Okay.
But yeah, somewhere around there.
Right. I feel like I've known you, not known you, but watched you for so
in
long.
the
I don't know.
way.
Yeah, right. Yes, I've known you.
I mean, that's true of a lot of this sort of thing. Like a lot of the major, I don't know. I read like a thread a little while ago, history of RedTube, and it was weird to think that people like H Bomber Guy have only been around so long too. Like, for that matter, heck, go back to the beginning of YouTube. It's way more recent. I don't know. It's more recent and longer ago than I feel like, in a weird way. Like,
like 2006.
Hard to
whoa.
explain.
But like,
yeah,
I guess that's not too. Only a
yeah.
14
It feels
years
like
later.
it feels like it's always been that way, but also feels like it should be sort of new. Even just things like remembering that like the Numa Numa video wasn't YouTube. YouTube didn't exist when that video happened. Like,
what?
yeah, it's weird.
Where was it
Really
hosted?
weird. Yeah, I don't even remember. Like, on something. But yeah, I don't know. I had dial-up internet when that happened, so I was late to that train. But yeah, I don't know. Internet history is weird.
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, I'm sorry I'm so poor at transitioning. Everyone I interview with, they have to deal with it. So
you're fine. No, you're perfectly fine.
I guess I also wanted to ask, because as someone who just went through college and kind of wished I could have wrote about games, like what games did you write about before like your final like making the like class not schedule but the curriculum and stuff, if you remember, like what was the first essay that you wrote about a game, and you had the courage to even do that?
Oh, courage was not an issue, let me tell you. Like when I was a kid, oh gosh, I've admitted this publicly before, but I should preface this by saying it will never go public ever.
Okay.
But when I was a kid, I saw that there were books based on I forget, like Doom or something,
right.
Some shooter that I was like a kid who thought shooters were dumb, and I was like, oh, why are they making books about that stupid game? I'll write a book about my favorite game, Crash Bandicoot. And I wrote this basically like fan fiction novelization of the first Crash Bandicoot. I constantly had my like folder around and I'd be writing in it. So yeah, no, courage was not really an issue there. I'm also just generally the type of person, like when I figured out, hey, video games could be like a form of literary art, of storytelling, I wasn't like bashful about it, and whenever people would scoff at me or whatever, it would just kind of inflame it.
Yeah.
So, oh man, trying to remember because like when I was in high school, I wrote about video games. It was like informative essays about video games and culture, like violence in video games, stuff like that. A lot of essays, I'm pretty sure I wrote in high school about how video games don't turn you into a serial killer.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until college. Yeah.
That's a great argumentative. Really... Yeah, sorry.
yeah. Well, it was easy, especially since that was, when I was in high school was when like Jack Thompson was still around and stuff. There was a lot of fuel for that fire.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I wrote about games in more of like essay as though I were writing an essay about a book or something until college. And I don't remember essays about specific games, but I do remember that I took a Shakespeare on film class.
Okay.
And my final was about it was an exploration of what it might be like to adapt Shakespeare stories into video games.
Hmm.
Um, and I basically tried to let's see, what were my two main ones? The main one that I still actually think would be pretty cool was adapting Henry V as sort of like a BioWare esque RPG.
Yeah.
Because like one of the main struggles of that one is sort of his struggle between his own like what he wants for his life and his duties as king, and it would be a real interesting sort of binary, instead of good or evil, renegade and paragon. This sort of like, is this choice more for Henry or for his leadership?
Yeah.
And so I kind of had that, as sort of a stand-in for a morality system, and yeah, I had a lot of fun writing that one.
Yeah.
I was also, the type of college student who would always go over the page limit, and I got special permission from the professor of that class to do that for that one. So that was fun.
Damn.
I'm trying to remember exactly what I wrote that convinced Dr. Larson about that, though, because he was the one that I managed to really just convince about the value of video games as a storytelling medium. And I don't remember any of the specific things that I wrote that would have contributed towards convincing him of that.
Mm-hmm.
He was my my counselor
advisor,
in terms of deciding what advisor. That's the word.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't remember if there's anything I wrote for that. Might have just happened because I talked to him a lot. I don't know, but yeah. No, it was always an interest of mine. So I, pursued it whenever I could force video games into the conversation.
Yeah.
In terms of my writing, at least I did.
Yeah.
So
I wrote about films about stripping. So like I kind of, like writing some off-kilter stuff. But like movies, I feel like people understand more and they're like more okay with. It was more the subject matter that was kind of
for sure
weird to, some people.
Yeah. See, I never could have written on that because I was at a Christian college.
You couldn't have?
You said stripping in movies, right?
Yes, but I was at a Christian college too.
Oh, really?
They're pretty.
I can't imagine that. Yeah. Since I was an English major, my surroundings were relatively liberal, but probably not that liberal.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah. Huh.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's something. Well, I have so many questions. There's so much I want to ask you. I will ask first. What games got you thinking about them as a narrative, tool, as just narratives, and really got you inspired and put you on this path essentially,
This one actually has a fairly easy timeline, and I've thought about it, sort of in a historical, how did this happen to me context before.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing though. I always forget which order these two happened in, but the order I sort of remember it happening in was first Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, because I had largely been either playing PlayStation with my friend who was really into racing games and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and stuff, so I'd usually play with him, and then Crash Bandicoot was my favorite, and so I'd also try other games sort of similar to it, like Spyro the Dragon and worse ones like Croc. But then I discovered Sands of Time, and I was like, oh, this is super cool, all the cool camera angles and moves you can... and played it and realized, hey, this has an actual story, and then got to the ending and realized, oh, it... because I loved reading as a kid. From a very young age, I was reading, novels above my grade and stuff like that. I loved it. And so when I played that game, I sort of recognized elements that was just in stronger Crash Bandicoot. And that was when I sort of realized, hey, that's this game's telling a story, a real actual story,
Yeah.
And then what broke my weird, when you're a kid, you decide you hate something even if you don't know it or understand why. What broke my weird hatred of first person shooters, when I think about it, it was probably that I was kind of goody two shoes and thought that they were violent and wrong, so I couldn't, they were bad.
Yeah.
But evangelical upbringing, it'll do that to you.
Yeah.
But I my cousin got me to play Halo, and we played through the first Halo together in co-op.
Okay.
And I still remember, like, the moment in the level 2 Betrayals where, like, it's revealed exactly what Halo is and what's been going on and all that stuff. And I'm like, I did not see that.
Yeah.
And, it was just kind of another moment of, this is a thing that I normally expect to find in books and in movies that I love, and it's here in this video game. It was like two things I loved were colliding. And then the thing that really, really, really set it off for me was Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
I'd never played an RPG before, never played a Final Fantasy game, and this was well after Final Fantasy VII came out. I was in high school. I had a GameCube and a Game Boy Advance, like, long after 1997. But I remember specifically, like, the early scene where Tifa asks Cloud if he remembers the promise that he made to her, and it flashes back to the two of them as kids on the water tower. I was, clicking through this dialogue and realizing, man, this isn't even like, this scene isn't leading up to me fighting anything. It's not, furthering the next thing I have to do in the story. This is just here for the story. That's the only reason this scene exists. And that's cool. Like, I loved that. And so it was kind of the first game that I played that didn't just have a story, but made the story quite so much of a front and center focus. And yeah, I mean, after that, there was a lot of me, sort of finding new games, new experiences, and understanding how I interact with stories and games in a more nuanced and in-depth way. But that progression of those 3 games was the first thing that really got me just, like, really in love with games, not just because they were cool and fun to play, but because of the stories they told.
Yeah. And then I guess to go backwards in time even more, what was it like growing up in an evangelical household and liking games? Like, were you allowed to play games? Like, what was your relationship with them?
Wasn't disallowed to play games, but I also wasn't enabled to.
Yeah.
My first system, well, no, I always forget which was my first, either a Game Boy Advance. Oh, no, sorry. My first system was a PS1, but I bought it with my own money, and I bought it from my brother-in-law because he had bought a PS2. Like, I was late to that game. I knew I wanted a PlayStation because the aforementioned friend that I played games with a lot had one and had Crash Bandicoot 2, which was my, like, first video game true love. I loved that game a lot.
So, like, what was the age range? Like, when was, like, were you, like, a little older, like 8, like 9, 10 when you were playing games, or was it?
Yeah, probably like 10 or 11 when what year would that? Let's see, 99. No, so it probably would have been like 2000. Probably like 2000, maybe 2001. I would have been like 10, 11 maybe.
When you like first pick up a game?
When I first got a video game system. I had played games before then. I'm pretty sure the first game I played was Super Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
On the NES. I have very vague memories of when I was very young and first sort of encountering that and realizing, whoa, I pushed the button and the guy on the screen moves. That's cool.
Yeah.
And, I had this fascination with video games after that, but I never got a chance to really, like, explore that because my parents weren't, they didn't think they were evil or anything, but they also didn't really think it was something I should be spending time and effort and money on. So I had to break myself into that world myself, and I did it a little late, but
right. Okay, I was like, the fact that you learned gaming literacy at the age of 10 is like, that's kind of impressive. I don't know. I feel like if you're,
I don't know. The gaming literacy was probably a little bit later. Sands of Time didn't come out till 2003, so I was.
Well, I bet just like playing literacy, not like reading them as narratives, but just being like, what is a video game like? I move to the right. What?
Yeah, no, it had been a little earlier than Tony Hawk and Bandicoot at that friend's house and stuff. Yeah, it definitely did take me a while to become gaming literate enough to try different types of games.
Yeah,
like when I played Halo for the first time before I actually like played it through, it was at a friend's house and I was like, why am I using the stick to move? I literally hated that the fire button was the trigger because I thought it should be X. Yeah. And I was like, that makes so much sense, like just intuitive sense to use the trigger for fire, but I wasn't used to it.
Was that your Crash Bandicoot brain who's like, square to spin, it needs to be X, it needs to be that button?
Yeah, pretty much. I was used to more like platformers and less violent games, I guess. My parents were like super anal about that, but
Okay.
it was, I generally avoided games that had a particular degree of violence in it, and so, yeah, I think I was used to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like, but Halo is a good first person shooter for a kid, just because it has like this. It's so
I'd say yeah.
mysterious and like
Hmm.
kind of overwhelming. I don't know. When I was a kid playing it, I was like afraid. Like, there's this global threat. You're on this planet that you can see
Yeah,
all of, and like you're just alone, and it's so scary. And you drive into these underground, like ancient constructions and stuff. I don't know. It's got a very
yeah,
good atmosphere, and that's like it makes sense that like that was one of the first that like pulled you in, because like it's not just like go murder. It's like you're in
yeah,
this world. Immersion isn't like the end all be all of like a game or story or whatever, but like it definitely is a good way of like starting you off liking that sort of thing and liking narrative in games and stuff.
yeah, for sure. I definitely think that Halo gets like sort of deserved but also sort of unfair reputation as being like kind of a simple dude bro shooter.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the campaigns had more depth than people generally ascribe to them. Not to say they were masterpieces or anything, but I do think there's something of value there more than a lot of other shooters that were sort of around at the time.
Right. And I mean,
Um,
like your Halo 2 video is like a great video. I mean that's like one of your best videos, honestly. Um,
that was a fun experience for me.
yeah,
I didn't expect it to be quite so personal when
right. And then your other video series, probably my favorite, is like the Gears of War one, just because it's like
Mm,
I just like that. I don't know. I want to look at like stuff that people don't generally talk about, and like Gears
yeah,
of War, who like they'll talk about its influence and like how it changed gaming and stuff like that, and it's like aesthetic, but no one ever really talked about the narrative. So it was nice
yeah,
to, even if it's not fully cohesive, at least
yeah.
you
It's
made the attempt.
yeah. It was that was honestly one of the ones I had the more fun doing.
Yeah,
Just because, yeah, it is really a story that tried to say something and tried to mean something and didn't completely fail, but also didn't really succeed as well as it could have. It was
right.
dragged down by a lot of things, and yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that was way more than I intended to do. Honestly, like a
Mhm.
4 video series on it, I was just kind of figuring I can't just do one because one is nothing. Gears of War one is
Yeah,
nothing. But then if I do 1 and 2, I should just do 3. I'll whatever. It's simple enough. I'll just do a video, and then it turned into 4 videos. So
yeah,
that I bit off way more than I could chew. It was a mistake, but also I enjoyed doing it a lot. Like that was one of the video series I had the most fun making. I think,
yeah.
even if it was extremely stressful.
Well, it was a beautiful mistake. Thank you for making it so that I could watch
Well,
it.
I mean, you're welcome. I liked doing it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been wanting to get honestly. I want to get back to more. I don't know the I don't know how much we want to talk about this necessarily, but my creation process lately has been very difficult.
Yeah.
And when I have made something, it's been something that I really care about, like The World Ends with You, where
Right.
right now I'm working on Final Fantasy VII, and
Oh,
it,
snap.
very well. Yeah, I mean the remake's coming out. I got to go for
Oh,
that
yeah,
search engine
exactly.
optimization in case it actually works in my favor this time.
Money.
We'll
Yeah.
see. And I've been wanting to like FF7's been on my beginning because I love it, but
Right.
um, I like it's a lot. I did 6 freaking videos on The World Ends with You. It's one of my
Right.
all-time
And
by
how
it, so it turned into a giant project. I look forward to sort of chilling a little bit and trying to do again because I haven't done that in a while. I feel
how long was The World Ends with You? Like as a game? Like yeah, how many hours does it take to play?
20, 30.
Oh,
I want to say
frick. And
something
Final
like that. Like on the short JRPG
Yeah.
side,
And Final Fantasy 7 is like
50 to
60.
60. Yeah, I was aided by like I own that game in so many different formats, but I replayed it on the Switch and I actually just finished it today.
Okay.
And the Switch has things like you can set it to 3 times speed, you can turn off random
Oh, nice,
encounters, you can
nice.
make it so that your just constantly have full health and limit breaks and stuff. And like, that's not the kind of, like, if I was playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, I would not recommend
Right.
utilizing those things too much. Some, sure, but not too much. But I've played the game twice before. I was just playing it so that I can, like, I don't do an analysis without playing the game, even if I played the game before. Like, I want the entire experience and my interaction with it fresh in my mind. So I knew I had to do that for that, especially for a game this like large and complex and sort of convoluted in that JRPG sort of way.
Right.
So yeah, I wanted to actually play it through, and so thankfully I got through it way quicker than I did the other times because of those. So
Yeah, how do you know how long it took you?
I can get my Switch if you want to find out. Like it's on there. Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a sec.
I'm sorry, folks, for his camera not working. That's my fault.
I can't wait. What?
Oh, yeah. So could you turn off your camera and turn it back on real quick? Thank you.
Oh, is it not going?
Yeah, but it was
wait,
like
what?
it fixed itself earlier. So I thought, it'll do it, and then it wasn't.
Oh, I hadn't even seen. Like I saw myself when I was weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I had no idea that it had turned off. Huh.
Now I just have a static image of you, which is all right. It's
Wait,
better
what?
than nothing. I don't know.
I have 100 Mbps up and down
There we go.
fiber optic internet. Why
Hey,
is it?
It's my internet. I'm sorry. I'm the bad one.
Sorry, not 100 Mbps. That's not the. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
100 gigabytes up and down. That's it.
Wait, what?
Fiber optic internet's amazing. Is it gigabyte? What is it? Dang it! Whatever. It's fiber optic internet, so it's I love it. Also, the main thing that I love is that the speed is. Sorry, you can hear these Final Fantasy VII sounds.
That's okay.
The upload speed is as fast as the download speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my like before I moved to Knoxville, I lived like up in the mountains in Northern California, too away from internet. It took me 11 hours to upload my Metroid Other M video. It was like 40 minutes. It was 11 hours. I uploaded my World Ends With You videos, and each one took like 2 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fiber optic internet I love it so much.
Right. I have that. It's just it cuts out a lot, so that's kind of I don't know why. It might be
I guess
the
that
router or
makes
something.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. It was about 40 hours this playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, and that is elongated a bit by the fact that I was doing not all of the extra stuff, because a lot of extra stuff in these old JRPGs aren't important story wise,
Right.
but I was still like exploring, and for that matter, I wanted to try. I mean, I tried to go to Calm to see if I could. Arlene, you can't. I went to Gongaga Village many times to see if I could talk to Zack's parents once we find out what that whole thing is about. You can't. Missed opportunity. I will absolutely talk about that. But yeah, so that's a mix. Oh, and of course, every single important like story, conversation, or scene, I was constantly taking notes. And so
you're
honestly,
like
if I wasn't doing that, I could have gotten through it hours quicker if I wasn't just writing down every single thought that came into my head and every line I thought was important and stuff like that.
Right.
But
that's the bad part about, like, I never really did a close reading until this class I took a couple years ago. It was like old English, like, not mythology, but like sort of like old medieval lit, and then like modern medieval interpretations of that lit, and like we would like compare and contrast and stuff. And like this teacher was a really hard grader, and she wanted you to know like every single detail of these stories, and like be able to interpret them thematically. But like, so she wants you to be like underlining every other sentence in like a book and stuff. And I'm like, oh my god, this is for real. So now I kind of when I'm like making a video on like Batman the Animated Series right now. So at first I was just like writing down everything that I possibly could, and it was taking really long to get through an episode. And I was watching it with a friend, and I felt really bad. But you had to like properly, do it. You have to like mark down everything, and your thoughts on it and stuff like that. So I can't imagine with a JRPG.
Yeah, the difficult thing about it, in cases like unless I make a new save every single time I save, somehow keep track of which saves are at exactly which points and before which important story points or whatever, I can't necessarily just go back and see something.
Right.
Like, I'll get a long play for footage and stuff, and I'll be able to look through that, but that doesn't include optional stuff necessarily. Like, I need to make sure, generally speaking, when I'm analyzing a game, I need to make sure that I can write the analysis from just my notes.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily have access to everything I need in the game itself. So yeah, my notes document at the end of finishing Final Fantasy VII is about 75 pages long on Google Docs.
That. Oh my!
It's absurd. It's completely ridiculous.
How many
I
words?
take too many notes, if anything. Oh gosh,
that's a more impressive number. Like, is it single spaced, double spaced?
Oh, it is single spaced, but also like really scattered. I didn't write my notes out as though it was an essay. It's just like, oh, this is cool.
Right.
Here's a line from Cloud. Remember this. Yeah. Oh crap, that happened. But I can see the word count on here. Let's see. Oh gosh, what is it? Tools, word count. There we are. 38,772. Sorry, 1,000. Yeah, no, 1,000. 38,000. Okay, yeah. I'm most of the way to a NaNoWriMo novel here, just in my notes, and I haven't done that. Like, I have links here to other things about Final Fantasy VII that I intend to read, including Polygon's like oral history of Final Fantasy VII here, which is huge. And I haven't even done that yet. Like, that research process is still yet to happen. So this notes document is going to be even longer by the time it comes time for me to actually write everything down. But oof, it's fun stuff. I enjoy it, honestly. It's just also a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. How much research do you usually do for videos? I don't know if has that been a part of your process since the beginning, or
not necessarily. A lot of my earlier videos were much like, this is what I think this story's about, and I generally still sort of want it to be that. Like, that's sort of the general idea in general. I want my analysis fairly comprehensive in terms of I want to at least sort of touch on most of the things that the game is trying to say. At least the things that I feel like I'm prepared to speak on. Some of my earlier video, like my Little Inferno video, doesn't talk much about capitalism or consumerism, and that is because I wasn't all that prepared to talk about political subjects back then, honestly. Like, I didn't think that I could do it in a very meaningful way. Heck, I'm not confident I could now, but I would at least try.
Right.
Because politics have become a much more important part of my life since then. But yeah, so the main thing is that I have always sort of looked at other perspectives when possible, because I'm very aware when making this sort of thing that I'm, looking at these stories from just my own life experience, and that is a fairly limited one. So I try to just kind of look at other perspectives, see what other people say about it, and I always go kind of knowing my basic thesis. I'm not just looking to, have other people tell me what the game's about, but it's good to get some other perspective on it when possible. Honestly, there's still only so much narrative analysis of video games out there, and so sometimes you just can't find much. But with something like Final Fantasy VII, it's big enough that there's plenty of stuff out there, and I do want to find out more about the game's development and stuff, especially since the fact that Hironobu Sakaguchi's mother died right before the production of Final Fantasy VII is a pretty important part of interpreting the game. So I pretty much just try to look for other perspectives, and then where relevant, look a little bit into the development of the game, the sort of context of when it came out, things like that. Because it's hard. It was hard for me to talk about. It would have been hard for me to talk about Legend of Dragoon without mentioning, that there were a lot of, it's sort of walking in the footsteps of what Final Fantasy was doing with the genre. It would have been hard to talk about Metroid Other M without talking about its place in the sort of Metroid universe. I hate that game so much. I hate it.
Right. I mean, that game is not only that's not the only reason why it's bad, but like a major part of it is because of the context of the franchise. Like if it was on its own,
Yeah,
it'd be, I mean, it's still like a weird like
it would be.
dominating story between a man and a woman, but
Yeah,
like
it
it's
would
like
be a bad sexist game no matter who it was
yeah,
about, but it
it's
was made significantly more so by being about Samus.
right. Yeah, yeah, and the
That's
story,
yeah,
yeah, like the inconsistencies and stuff with the narrative. Yeah, right.
yeah. No
Exactly.
game made in a vacuum and all that stuff. You know,
Right.
like the things that a game does and talks about matter based on the context of the game, the series, the world. You know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Other M was just. Oof.
Yeah. I should play it sometime. I'm kidding.
It's I mean, it's an experience. I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend it. There are some bad games that I recommend people play because they're fun bad,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's one of them necessarily. It's mostly just sort of okay gameplay and then infuriating
Yeah,
cutscenes.
right. Yeah, I guess I'll just watch the cutscenes and laugh.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you know, not to discourage you if you want to, feel free. I like trying things like that, but
yeah. We're
yeah.
I feel like, did you have a poll recently where you were gonna like make a video on a bad game, or was that
Yeah. Oh boy. Yes. I've been planning on doing another bad game for a time, but as again, I don't know how much we want to get into like my recent
no? We can
like
get into
productivity
it.
issues and ADHD and stuff like that. I'm happy to, but I don't know if we want to necessarily. But um,
I mean,
I was hoping when I put that poll up that I might be able to like do something like that for April as like an April Fool's thing, and
Yeah.
then clearly I was not doing it in time, and then Final Fantasy VII got delayed to April 10th, and I was like, okay, well that needs to be my priority.
Yeah.
Still around that time, you know, I can't have it out for April Fools. But yeah, people voted for Sonic 06 because they hate me and won't let me do Ride to Hell Retribution. I just want to do a video about Ride to Hell
You didn't have to
Retribution,
make
and they
the
keep
poll,
voting other
dude.
things. I know. I thought it would win. I felt confident in that.
No.
Sonic 06 isn't bad because of, well, it is bad because of the
Yeah.
story, but it's mostly bad because of the gameplay, and I don't
Right.
look forward to playing it.
How much story is like? I mean, good luck. I don't know how.
I'm pretty sure it has like 2 or 3 individual campaigns that like
Oh,
run
yeah, there are 4.
in sync with each other. 4? Oh,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I own it. I played the first one, and that was an excruciating experience. Like, it's a long game.
yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah,
the bad
it
part,
is.
you know?
And it's so bad that it's hard.
Yeah, right.
So that's, yeah, no, I played like the first little while of it. I think sequence or something. But I do have it. I forget if I have it on PS3 or 360, but I was hoping it had been released on PC and that someone had made it like an Lives beat mod or
Yeah.
something so I could get through it relatively easily.
Right.
But no, I'd have to like mod my consoles, and that's always that's not worth the risk just for making Sonic 06 bearable.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But yeah, no, I will do that at some point, but I do have a lot of other things that I need to be doing. So at some point, I will.
Yeah. Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know if that's the word for it, but I will have something.
Engagement. That's a nice way to say it.
Fair, fair. I don't know how much room there is on the internet for videos of screaming at it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Hi, Lamb Hoot. I don't know if you can see the chat.
Yeah, I've been looking at it.
Okay, yeah. Do you know the game Beckett? Jared, the playing field, asked. What's your opinion on it?
Don't.
I think
I feel like I should at least.
it's on itch. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Honestly, my familiarity with modern indie games is not nearly as good as it should be. I need to play a lot more of them.
Yeah,
But a whole lot of good games coming out at like $10 to $20 is a lot of games, and I only have so much money for them.
Right.
And I want them all, and time for that matter.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah.
But
I
it's on
think.
Steam too.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
AMVs.
I just think about how, like, if I was a kid and I had access to all like the indie games that are coming out now, I'd be set for life.
I know,
I'd
right?
just be constantly playing these random itch games and stuff. You know, like, you know, it would be
Yeah.
it's like addicting games, but like
Mhm.
like meaningful and
Yeah, more substance.
right, exactly, and well made. Well,
Yeah.
well made. Yeah, even if
Yeah.
it's a little, you know, rough around the edges. So
Right, for sure.
So was like every sniper game or every, you know,
Yeah.
balloon
Well,
popping
like
game.
games like that tend to be rough around the edges in interesting ways.
Yeah,
Like where like only so many AAA games have that same sense of like rough but still interesting and cool and good.
Yeah.
And for that matter, a lot of indie games like this tend to have, be small enough in scale to not necessarily have particularly rough edge.
Right, yeah, it's so
Like,
small that you sanded it into a really tiny, nice, like pearl, you know?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, no, I need to play a lot more of these. It's just money and time are hard, and adulting is bad, and I hate
exactly. I agree. Um, what's a game? So I just played No More Heroes, and
it.
I didn't like it. Um,
I only played a little bit of it, honestly. I couldn't really speak to it.
yeah. But I'm just curious, like, what's a game that you regret playing recently?
Ooh, boy.
If there is
Hmm.
one. Like, I just felt like I wasted my time. Like, I didn't need to play it. I don't know if there's anything like
Yeah.
that for you.
I mean, it's rough because I only have so much time now. So generally, if I'm not getting anything out of a game, I stop. Not intentionally, because I hate that. I want to finish all of my games, but
Yeah.
there's so much other stuff, and so I just
Right.
end up gravitating towards something else and leaving it behind. Oh, you know what? No, I am glad I played it, sort of, but I did a review roundup video recently that included this God of War 2.
Oh yeah,
Hated
yeah,
God
yeah.
of War 2.
Right.
Hated it.
And you finished
I
it?
didn't. Oh yeah, I finished God of War. I'm actually playing Dad of War right now because I
Right.
finished God of War 3 and I'm working on the review roundup that'll include that view. But yeah, no, I had tried playing God of War 2 a long time ago. I played the first one. I didn't honestly like. I appreciate God of War, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of problems with it, and I hate Kratos so much. So like, and then I tried playing God of War 2 immediately afterwards, but I was immediately annoyed at how all the character was gone. It was literally just, oh no, I was justly punished for being a completely horrible person. I'm gonna kill everyone now, and like that wasn't interesting to me. But I gave it another chance because I wanted to play the new one, and yeah, no, it just never got any better. It wasn't. The story didn't do anything interesting. The character was still terrible. It was one of I there's a particular type of video game story that's a pet peeve for me, and that's where all of the narrative content happens in the first and final 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Where like it introduces it all, and then it's like, Kratos, you get to this place to do this thing, and then the whole rest of the game is literally just the process of getting from A to B. Nothing develops, nothing changes, and then he gets to point B and then does the stuff, and that's the end of the game. And
Yeah.
like, why did I spend 8 hours doing all that stuff when I could have spent like 1 hour just doing the first and last parts?
Because
It's common in video games because a lot of
yeah.
what you need a reason to have the player
Right.
consistently doing things, but that doesn't make for a good story
Right.
at all. And when the game itself and the story itself isn't that interesting to me, that just it's the kiss of death for
Yeah.
me. I hated it.
Yeah.
But spoilers for my next video, I liked 3, so that's good.
Oh yeah. You think I should skip 2? And because I played the first one a couple months ago, and I thought it was like pretty decent. So
Yeah,
you think I
I
should skip 2 or?
I don't know. I don't necessarily like regret having played 2. I just didn't like it at all.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. I guess
Like I
I
understand like the need and like want to like just see what a thing is. Like that's kind of what No More
yeah
Heroes was for me. It was just like everyone talks
yeah
about it. It's this classic. It's kind of weird. Like where does it go? And then I saw it and I was like, okay, I got some gratification from just being able to be like, I know what No More Heroes is as a whole. So like I can
yeah
understand that if that's what you're talking about, if that's how you feel about God of War 2.
yeah. I mean, pretty much. I feel like basically it's worth it for the sake of uh, sort of knowing the build up to God of War 3.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you could play like the first 10 minutes, like the first half an hour of.
Right, and then
Um,
watch the ending on YouTube or something.
yeah, like there's still I don't know because yeah, for the most part, it just the story didn't move, and it's just so uncritical of
Yeah.
Kratos as a character. Game just presents super cool badass who's doing all this cool stuff, and it's horrific and awful, and the game never seems to bother even thinking about that.
Mhm.
3 finally does, like right from the beginning it does, and that's why I liked it so much in comparison. But yeah, I don't know. If you find yourself short on time, I hate recommending that someone skip a game in a series. So I don't know that I would do that. But if you
Yeah.
find yourself short on time and just wanting to get through this, yeah, I don't know how worth it 2 is.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to say, and I hope this doesn't make you too upset, but I watched all your literary analyses, so I got a lot of games spoiled for me. I just did it. I was holding off for a while.
I'll admit that is one of the things that I hate about making,
Yeah.
because I hate spoilers, and I think games are generally a lot more powerful if you actually play them.
Right.
But it's a thing that happens, and I designed the series specifically for that. Specifically because I wanted it to be accessible even if someone's never played a game in it.
Yeah, right.
I've had people suggest that I don't do the summary, and like I agree that like if I was writing an academic essay, 100% don't summarize it. That's not how that works. You don't want to do that. But I've always wanted to make it so that if I wanted to make a series that I could have, when I was a child, shown to my mom to be like, hey, see how, there are stories here. Like, you don't have to have played BioShock to watch this and know it and understand that there is something of value here.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I set out to do, and I've stuck with that. And, if people want to skip the summaries, they can, but I try to make them informed, So, yeah, I make the videos with that in mind specifically, even though I do hate giving spoilers. So, yeah.
But I mean, also your summaries have like the seeds of the thematic stuff in there, so it's not like you're just, here is the plot. All right, now let's talk about at least.
Yeah, I try to sort of use the summaries to both refresh memories, because a lot of I imagine people who watch the Legend of Dragoon analysis, for example, hadn't played the game since 1998 or whatever. So to refresh memories, but also to sort of plant some seeds, because otherwise in the analysis I'd always have to be like, there's a scene where blah blah blah, and explain that part anyway. So I may as well use the summary to sort of put that idea in there and then come back to it later.
Yeah.
So I try to make it worth watching entirely, but
it's up to the viewer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And on that is part of why on longer, timestamps in the in the description, or even like The World Ends With You, just make it completely different videos.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. One quick question about The World Ends With You, and then I want to ask something else. But I remember you like called out on Twitter asking for people to like record saying certain lines, and you'd have like a bunch of people like all of their voice. Did that end up in the video? I feel like, did I miss this? Or...
Yeah, no, it was in the 5th video, the one about the 3rd week of the game, because there's that point, minor spoilers for The World Ends With You here coming up, but there's that point in the game, like everyone in Shibuya is being like overtaken by this weird like virus that makes their eyes glow red, and they all
like, chant or something.
Yeah, they all say that same mantra, and there's a point in the video I have where I display that by having different NPCs and stuff saying the line, and have different voices that I had been sent in those recordings saying it, all ending in all of them saying it in unison at the end. So yeah, I have that in that video.
I'm just dumb. I didn't even pay attention. I guess because I wanted to do that. Like, I saw the call and I was like, I'm gonna send him my voiceover, and then I never did. So I could have been in that video. I wasn't, but that'd have been cool, right? Everyone?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun thing to do. I'm glad I did. It was, yeah.
But anyway, I guess something that you've been tweeting about, and sort of that's been part of the channel, is that you've been kind of having trouble making videos as of late. So is this like more recent? Is this like after the full-time job stuff? Is this like separate from that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it probably started when I got that not just a full-time job, but when I got that job I hated.
Yeah.
I kept up with it for a while. Like that was around the Stanley Parable.
Okay.
Because that analysis has at the end me getting a new studio, and that's because I had moved. And so I sort of worked that into the sketch of that. If anyone's watching my channel, by the way, you should check. I did a weird, cool thing with it, and I'm proud of it. And it's one of my like less viewed analyses, and I'm sad about it. But yeah, so that was when I took that job, and I was working with hydroelectric power plants. I have no interest in hydroelectric. Like, it was so far outside of anything that I cared to do it was well paying. Like I would still be
Yeah.
in student loan debt if not for that. So like, it was good. But it sucked the life right out of me, and I was there for 2 years.
Okay.
And um, that was sort of the start of it, I guess. Between that and then eventually, like my boss quit and was replaced with someone who had very different expectations of what I was supposed to do on the job.
Okay.
Mechanic. He wanted a lot more out of me than I could give, so he eventually let me go, and my wife and I moved to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I don't know, a lot of sort of the process of that part of my life took a lot out of me, and what I came to realize, I was recently I was very aware of the fact that I just hadn't been making content, and like I have a Patreon, I have something of a responsibility to be producing something because people are literally giving me money on a regular basis to do so.
Yeah.
And I was very aware of the fact that I wasn't living up to that, but for some reason it never changed. I kind of just kept thinking that it would, like, oh, I need to do this, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen. And a little while ago I realized there's got to be something else to it, like I've always enjoyed doing this, why am I just not now? And that sort of led me to revisiting a suspicion when I was a child that never got looked into, that I have ADHD. And thankfully my work provides some counseling and stuff, and found out that pretty definitely have ADHD.
Okay.
Which contributes to things like executive dysfunction and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I started sort of, I was thinking it might have been depression, honestly, because I know that it does. It makes it so that you don't want to do things, even if they're things you want to do and that you enjoy and that would make your life better, would make you happier, but you don't want to.
Yeah.
And, I don't think it ended up being that, but there's definitely some stuff going on with me that I just hadn't, like, I'm not blaming the ADHD so much as the fact that I didn't know. I wasn't handling it properly because I wasn't equipped to. I didn't have that understanding of it. And so I've been working on that a lot lately. I'm still seeing the therapist about it. I haven't gone on meds, but it's definitely something on my radar. We'll see how things go. But I'm trying to be better at it. I've gotten, not a lot of videos, but more than I had recently. And thankfully, my coolest, most understanding people, they're cheering me on and helping me out.
Yeah.
And, I want to get back to doing more. And for that matter, I have, analyses requested by patrons that, I owe them for pledging at a certain level that I haven't done yet, that I'm working on now. As soon as Final Fantasy VII's done, I'm going to be working on one in earnest, and I'm going to be working on getting that backlog out. It's, I don't know.
How long is that?
It's weird because, I think like 3-4 games, maybe.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
It's not horrific, no, but analyses are a lot of work.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And the thing too is that I changed up my Patreon so that I wouldn't get any new ones. Partially because I need to catch up.
Yeah.
And partially also because, frankly, it's not a good system for it. Patreon is about regular income, like regular donations and stuff, and analysis. I had it as like $50 pledge, you get an analysis. And as soon as I did that, someone would come in like, "Hey, I want to do this one," and then would
back out.
This happened with the Dustin Elysian Tale announcement. That happened. Someone requested it and then backed out after 1 month, and $50. I made like less than 50 cents on the hour for that analysis, by far. Less than 25 cents an hour probably. Like, these are a lot. So once I catch up, I'm planning on implementing like a single pay system. But of course, I need to get better at producing content relatively quickly before then too. So I'm working on it. I'm sort of recovering, coming to understand my struggles with this sort of thing better, with the specific hope of getting back to making more videos, because I love it. I really do. And I honestly wasn't even playing all that many games in that time period. I'm even just getting better at that. I've just been playing games more often because...
Yeah, I need to. I mean, I don't have a Patreon that I'm, like, I'm indebted to essentially, or like, trying to keep from, not giving me money. But like, I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and like do I want to make YouTube videos like constantly and like try and make that some sort of revenue stream? And it's hard,
Yeah.
definitely, to like find the time, like having a part-time job. Do you have a part-time job at the moment or a full-time
Full
job?
time.
You're full-time.
Yeah.
So that's even
Hmm.
more difficult.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's a job that gives me a decent amount of. Like I finished Final Fantasy VII today while I was at my
Oh, dang.
because but it's also just not a it's not a very high paying job. It's
Okay.
not a very like it's not great, but yeah,
Yeah.
it has that downtime, so it lets me sort of work on this a little more, and I'm hoping to get it better.
That's the
My wife
beauty
and I
of the
both have
Switch.
useless arts degrees, so
Yeah.
we're yeah. And yeah, that is the nice thing about the Switch. I use my laptop there sometimes too. I've been playing through Trails in the Sky at work sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Um, but yeah, someone trying to figure it out. It's like it's so hard to balance like wanting to just play games for fun because I own 15 billion games, and I'm like,
yeah,
I guess
same.
I should play some.
Yeah.
And making videos and
Yeah.
doing the job, and it's like,
Yeah, and it's hard too because like you have to when you have a YouTube channel about games, you have to play games. Like you have to. You can't. Even aside from like I wish that I had the money and time to actually like be up on things, but there's a reason that my video about Code Vein came out months after Code Vein came out. I don't have the time to play through these games quickly.
right.
And a lot of times I don't have the money to buy them when they first come out either. But beyond that, like you're not if I'm not playing games, I'm not thinking about games. I'm not at least as much. I'm not as active in thinking about the things that my channel is about.
Yeah.
I need to be playing games so that I can be inspired to come up with ideas and to think about things that I think would be an interesting video, an interesting topic to talk about. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not coming up with it. And but at the same time, obviously, if I'm playing too many video games, show.
Yeah, right. You're not writing, you're not, working on that
Yeah.
script and editing. Yeah.
It's a hard balance, and I've been trying to get better at both of them lately, because I hadn't been playing games or producing the show, and now I'm trying to do more of both of those and having that whole balance thing again. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting process.
Are you sleeping? I've been considering just sleeping less. Like that's kind of where I have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I generally get enough sleep. I'm also a night person, so
Oh, okay.
that comes with some challenges, but thankfully my job isn't a morning job, so I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I have a fairly workable situation, but yeah, don't always get as much sleep as I like. But lately, I've been not getting enough sleep because I have been so invested in a video game, I lose track of time, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it's something I haven't experienced in a while, and I'm really happy to have that again.
Yeah. That's kind of what I think I need to do. I need to move all my video game time to really late because I'm gonna stay up and then do all the work during the day when I,
Yeah, my peak creative time is, like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. So playing games or writing games, like that's my, I need to be doing that around then, which is also why, that was another problem with that hydroelectric job I had, was that like, I had to be up doing it at a relatively early time. And I found that when I adjust my sleep schedule, I don't like that creative period doesn't move. I just lose it. I have to sleep during that time, and it doesn't shift with my sleep schedule.
Right.
It's just gone, and that was awful.
Right. And then you're probably that you said you were a mechanic? You were like physically working and stuff?
Sort of. I was more just like keeping track of them, but yeah, if they were to break down or something, I'd be there to start them up again, do basic troubleshooting at least.
Okay. Yeah.
You're like I said, the guy who hired me knew what he was getting. I wasn't a mechanic or anything, but I was a reliable person to sort of just check on them and make sure everything was working right and stuff like that. So, it honestly, it wasn't a bad job. I got an Audible account, listened to a whole bunch of books while I was driving around, all these little plants in the mountains, and it wasn't a bad job. It's just really not something that works for someone like me who has to be doing something that he cares about. Like I don't care about power plant.
Right.
To put 8 hours of work a week into that for 2 years. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wish I was the kind of person who could just do that, like do something I don't care about for 40 hours a week and
make
be
life
okay
a
with
lot
that.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I know I saw you tweet out that you, to help your workflow, you've been using the Steam controller to edit. How how has that been?
It's working all right. The main thing is that like my job has a lot of downtime, but not a whole lot of space, and so I couldn't really use like a mouse and keep a mouse set up with my laptop to
Yeah.
edit. So I tried to use the Steam controller and see if that could work, and it works okay. I've been changing up my control scheme on it because it's hard to really make it so it works well when you're trying to just. It basically just comes down to the right touchpad thing for moving the mouse, and then just all the other buttons for like selecting and shortcuts and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you
and I got it so that I can at least do basic editing just fine.
Yeah. Do you
On it, but
launch-
it's still not as good as my desktop.
do you
For
launch
obvious reasons.
Premiere through Steam then?
No, actually, the Steam controller works on the desktop.
Okay.
Like you can
I
just
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah. Once you connect it in, you can use it for just normal everyday desktop stuff. There's even like you can go into Steam and change what the controls are for it. So I just made my Steam desktop control configuration specifically for Premiere,
Yeah.
so that like on the left radial thing, I have it so that I can pick things like the cut tool, select tool, pen tool, stuff like that.
Right.
I have easy copy paste and delete buttons on there, and it works all right. It's still not ideal, but
Right.
it lets me get some of my work done while I'm at work. So
Yeah.
it's helpful. Saves me a little bit of time.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, that's genius.
Yeah. Honestly, the worst thing about it is working on one screen, because like I have a two monitor
yeah.
setup at home, and the laptop obviously does not have that.
Right.
But the Steam controller itself works fine. I wouldn't edit a major Hollywood motion picture that way or anything, but
Right.
for
For
putting video clips of a video game into over audio of me talking about it, it works fine.
Yeah.
Thankfully, video essays aren't that editing intensive, honestly. Like,
Right. Depends
at least
on who
until
you
you start
are,
getting
but-
into. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, once you start getting into like the philosophy tube type
Yeah,
stuff, then
exactly.
like
I mean, like
but-
he's just kind of, a lot of his stuff is just kind of him talking. It's more like the editing of like the shot.
that's true.
reverse
Even
shot
then,
and
I guess
stuff like
the
that.
editing isn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I figured out my basic editing scheme right from the beginning. I have two shots, a sort of like normal wide-ish shot, and then a close-up
Yeah.
shot. And whenever it's shots back to back of me talk, because I just have the dialogue, the video essay, like the words split up into chunks, so I can just record one at a time. And then if there are two back to back, switch them between the perspectives, and it's pretty easy. So
Do you just record like the whole script straight in one camera shot and then do it again entirely in the other shot?
no, actually, I
like,
have
switch off?
Oh man, I wonder if there's a way that I could show this. Oh, maybe I could on my phone. I don't know how well that would view, but I am paranoid about the idea of screen sharing. So,
Yeah, no, don't.
uh,
There could be some, I don't know what's on your desktop.
yeah, it could be very scary.
I always keep my social
let's see.
security on my desktop just to be sure.
Yeah, it's just yeah, just as your desktop background, just in case you forget. But yeah, I can. Let's see. Let's take a look at a recent script. Okay, here. World ends with you. Conclusion and analysis. Oh gosh, my phone is about to die. This will be great. Okay. Whenever it loads, I can show you. Basically, I have three types of shots
Yeah.
in my videos. One I call normal, which is sort of like a whiteout shot. It's the one where you can see the little pedestal with the games or whatever I put
Yeah.
on it. Jimmy also does that, by the way, because she's, like I said, all the visual
Your
stuff
set
she does.
design,
She's
yeah,
good at it.
so good.
Yeah. So that's that shot, and then there's the closer up one, and then there's just audio. Like I call them footage shots, or like I'm going to put game footage over it, so I don't need to film myself. I can just record the. Is my phone just, is that what's happening now? Why is it moving? Well, I'll try and just describe it without showing it, just in case I can't show it. So I essentially. The main thing is I don't want, in my main videos at least, I don't want jump cuts.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted from the beginning for it to look, relatively professional as much as it can for, a poor guy filming in his living room.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can.
Okay.
Is that viewable at all? It looks kind of.
It's a little blurry, but like normal
Yeah.
shot, then close up, normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if you go down a bit, you'll see like footage. Yeah, I
Gotcha.
between normal and close up whenever, because like the main thing is that I want to be able to recite what I'm needing to say without needing to memorize an entire script.
Yes.
Like that's a lot to do. So I cut it into chunks. Usually about like 4 lines is how I measure a good chunk when I'm doing it on a desktop on Google Docs. That's about as much as I can reliably just
Remember.
sort of recite
Right.
for a one shot at a time. And so I split it into chunks like that for whenever I'm on screen. And if it needs, if it requires more than one of those chunks, then I alternate shots between the 2 different perspectives on me. And then whenever I intend video game footage to go over it, I just, write it all. Like I have footage shots that are way longer because I can just read it into a mic.
Yeah.
The video footage doesn't matter, isn't necessary. So yeah, and that's sort of how I do it, alternating between the 2 different visual perspectives when I'm on screen, and then showing video game footage when it's time to show video game footage.
Right. So you'll have the shot, and then you'll read everything that you're supposed to read for that shot. So you'll be jumping around and stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. We film all the normal shots first because there's no point in moving the camera back and forth all the time. Yeah, so we film it all out of order. We film the shots from the normal perspective first, and then the close-up perspective, which is usually smaller because I default to the further perspective.
Yeah.
Like if I have a footage shot and then a me shot and then a footage shot, it's going to be that further out perspective.
Yeah.
So we do all those and then all the close-ups, and then we're done with the filming portion of it, and I just read the rest into an Audacity audio file after that. So yeah, and then just edit them together into chronological order on the computer, and then you have a Games is Lit video.
Boom. That's it.
After a lot of editing video game footage into it too.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Let me see. I have other questions. Oh yeah. So I saw that you and Jimmy are working on a visual novel.
Yes.
How is that going, and what is it about, and just all the details about this visual novel?
Well,
How did this begin?
basically, do you mind if I ask her something really quick before I answer that? Okay, cool. Just a sec.
Y'all want to see some? Oberweis.
Sorry, what? Okay. So, sorry about that.
So you're not allowed to disclose anything about it?
Exactly. I can say nothing under pain of death.
Right.
No, I just wanted to make sure I had her okay to talk about it. Essentially, she likes video games and plays video games. I'm very much the type of person who needs, a partner to sort of be into the same things as me, to at least respect, but ideally enjoy. And thankfully, she very, very much does.
Yeah.
But she really likes, romance games and likes romance in games.
Yeah.
She loved Dragon Age Inquisition, but sometimes wish she didn't have to, do all the fighty stuff,
Yeah.
which on Inquisition in particular I share. Actually, I like that game, but I also have a lot of problems with it. But as far as romantic visual novels are, that most of them, of course, are aimed at men.
Yeah.
Which is weird from a game's perspective. And the ones that are aimed at women are, how do I actually say it? Lame, she says. Oh, tame, not lame. There are ones that but yeah, no, tame. That is actually a good way to say it. There are a lot of very sexual visual novels for men.
Yeah.
And there aren't many for women. They tend to be like usually T-rated, sometimes M-rated, but never just all out.
Yeah.
And she didn't like that. So doesn't like that, I should say. And she decided that she wanted to fix it herself.
Yeah.
So it's a magical girl game about a like preparatory college age school in Oregon that sort of takes people who have magical potential and trains them up to be magical girls in the case that they are women, or other sort of magical support types if they're men. Or others. Sorry, yes, I should. It's an extremely gender inclusive game.
Yeah.
Lots of different gender identities and sexual orientations and stuff. And the whole idea is that what frees up a magical girl to make full use of her powers is a spark that happens when they fall in love and an act of sacrificial love is performed. So the whole idea is that you play this woman who's going to this school and who has this cast of characters around her that it's a visual novel. You make choices that puts you on a path to romance one of them and eventually spark with them and become a magical girl and stuff like that. And also it has sex in it. And so
yeah.
Did I describe it well enough? Cool.
Okay.
So it's at Saint Valentine's on Twitter if anyone. St. Valentine's VN. Sorry, at St. Valentine's VN Twitter.
I apologize if this is more her project. I didn't know how involved you were. I thought I saw.
It's very much
like coding
she came up with the idea. She's writing it. She's doing the art because I can't art for crap. But I'm like, it started off sort of as me being like, oh well, maybe I could program it in Ren'Py, and then it turned into me brainstorming with her, and then it turned into me being like, there was a word you used for it a while ago, like a story. I don't know. Like basically, I'm helping take it from an idea and actually bring it to life, but it's brainchild. It's her project, and I'm helping it turn into a game, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not just programming. I'm helping with story and character and stuff like that, but it's very much helping her creative process along and then turning it into a game, which I don't have much in the way of programming experience. Ren'Py is very easy. Like, it's a game making system with a simplified version of Python made specifically for visual novels. So it's pretty simple, but still more complicated than I'm used to. So it's been fun getting into it, but it's very possible and very simple, and I've been having fun with it.
Yeah. Was that a cat?
Yes, it was a cat. That was Revan.
Hey.
Good boy. Pretty much all our cats are named after one or another reference. That one's Revan. We have a cat named Cookie Cat. Another named Apples, which is a red versus blue reference.
Okay.
So yeah. But anyway, yeah, cat. But yeah, no, it's been really fun to be making the game and working with her, and we're thinking it'll probably be out sometime next year.
Yeah. Oh wow. How Oh shit.
Sorry, what?
No.
No, what? Next year?
John.
That was okay. Well, I apparently got that wrong. I thought it was going to be next year, but whatever.
Never assume. Never put a
sometime.
date.
Sometime it will be.
Yeah. But like, how often are you like working on it? Like, do you like set out specific days or like?
Yeah, pretty often. I mean, for a while, I had pretty much maxed out what I was waiting on written scenes from her and assets, but at this point, I sort of stopped for a while to focus on trying to get Games as Lit back up and running. And I've been working on it a little more again lately too. I've been doing a lot of like inserting sprites. We're hoping to have a functional demo of the first, like the while up to the point where you lock into a romance round, ready to show like friends and stuff, just to make sure it's working okay. A couple months. So, I've been
full release of
yeah, with a full, more polished release of. So, like it's developed. But
wait, could you repeat that? You kind of cut out a little bit.
Oh, I was mostly kind of rambling. Just we're making progress. It's fun to see it.
Yeah. There's just a little bit at the end there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't miss anything with that. So.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely personally wanted to, like, I have ideas about visual novels though, and it seems like, personally, as someone who can't code, like, hey, that's like a, that seems like a good beginner way to get into games and stuff, and like try
Yeah,
and do
for
branching
sure.
narrative a little bit, play with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And it does, like I said, RenP is very simple, but it is. I mean, you learn the basic sort of if-then types of programming
yeah,
logic and stuff, and then I imagine you could branch out into something else if you need to. I'd personally rather not. Programming's not really my thing, but
yeah.
I'm sure it's possible.
Mm-hmm. RenP. Yeah, I'll look. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll
Yeah,
ever
it's a
actually.
very common it's a very common engine for visual novels, and it's like the programming language is extremely simplified. Like it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah, I was
So,
thinking maybe
and
I'll
then
just
it
do.
has Python, so you can get way more in depth if you want to.
Right. I think I might just do a PowerPoint though, and like,
Oh.
just press open this other PowerPoint file if you choose this.
It would be a really interesting format. I feel like you could play with that.
You probably, if to
It's like download a zip file full of PowerPoint presentations and be
Right.
like, "Hey, start here."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I guess, yeah, the environmental storytelling of a PowerPoint, like how they made the graphs and stuff, and like what it says
Yeah,
about the company.
yeah.
I'll get into
I'm
this.
I'm sure you certainly could.
Yeah. um, but yeah, let's see. So, something that you tweet a lot, so it helped get
I know
some
I
question.
do. I mean, yeah, I'm
I
not good at not tweeting.
It's okay. I appreciate it for questions. But what video or videos would you remake now? You said recently that there are some, and like I've also thought about it too. Like, your first few are like kind of, and you're like, I want to give it that sheen, and like add more perspective that I've gotten.
Yeah,
So I understand
I
your
already
desire, and you
yeah,
did like
I
with the Prince of
already
Persia
did it to
one.
my Prince of Persia
Yep.
one. Was specifically because the audio on that episode was horrific. Like, still on YouTube, it's just unlisted. Like, I wanted
Yeah.
to make it so that if there were links somewhere, they wouldn't be dead. So,
Yeah.
I also didn't want it easily accessible because, yeah, I accidentally I used the audio on my camera and it's horrible. It's so bad.
Yeah.
So I redid it. And I added some other stuff too, but for the most part, I just wanted to make a watchable analysis of Prince of Persia. And Jordan Mechner shared it on Facebook, so success, I'd say. But it as for others, I mean, there was around the time I tweeted that, I did also tweet about how if I was making my Beyond Good and Evil analysis, I would talk a little bit more about fascism
Right.
and the creation of an extra threat from outside that must be conquered, but also like maintaining that threat so that it's always present. That I'd talk about that a little bit more. Honestly, like I'd probably get a little bit political on a lot of my older videos. Like I've mentioned before, how I didn't mention consumerism and capitalism really in Little Inferno, and yeah, I would do that if I was doing that now.
Right.
But one of the main things that I just keep wanting to make a video on, but already made a video on, is the difference. Talking about the difference between activity, because this just still happens all the time. I hear people say that like, oh well, the gameplay is what makes a video game unique as a storytelling medium, and I'm like, no, that's not it. Like, interactivity does that. Like, the fact it doesn't have to be a set of game systems and a competition against the computer in order to have you interact meaningfully with a story. That's not necessarily part of it. It's much broader than that. And that's, I don't know, I see it come up so often, and I see it used so often against walking simulators and like other similar, visual, that if you don't have sort of a traditionally defined struggle against something in a competitive sense using game systems and rules and mechanics and goals and stuff, then it's not unique as a video game. And I hate that a lot because I very much don't think that's true.
Right.
And when I think about it, honestly, a lot of the most impactful storytelling moments in video games for me are, and specifically participant, not just a cutscene or something, they're moments where the game systems aren't what brought that on. If anything, oftentimes it's a subversion of the game systems, taking control away from, like, the plot twist in BioShock.
Yeah.
That's not a mechanical thing. They removed all of the game mechanics for that. That was the point.
Right.
Like, you know, and I could list just countless other times that video games involved me in a meaningful way that had nothing to do with the rules and goals and mechanics and stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel like I might be able to articulate that better now in written form than
Yeah.
I did back when I made that video, but I don't know. I might have to watch it again and see if I could actually justify making another video on the subject because I'd still kind of like to, but
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I don't feel like that'd be a long video, so I think like you could probably get away with it, you
No,
know?
it'd probably be relatively easy for me to write. That's a pretty good thing right now, and I'm just trying to get back in the swing of things, So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
It,
say
it, it might happen. It's a subject I could just rant about on a
yeah.
soapbox for days on end. So
I
probably
mean,
write an episode about
that's where your passion is. I say go for it, you know?
it. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
It would be good to have another short analytical, like not just review video before the Final Fantasy VII analysis, since that's like a little under 2 months out. So
Right. Yeah. Do you think I mean, not to jinx it, but like are you on a good pace at this point? Like you think like you'll be able to
not as
get
good
it?
as I wanted to be,
Okay.
but I am on I think I can. At
Yeah.
this point, I was sort of scheduling out an ideal setup in my head, and a little under write it, and then about a month to film and edit. I think is reasonable. I used to do it way quicker before.
Yeah.
Like it's not good odds under the work ethic that I have been exuding lately, but it's I kept myself on a way tighter schedule for the Gears of War videos, so I should be able to make this work.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'll be working on it a lot.
Yeah.
Do some more live write-ins too. It was something that I've done a couple times. Orders like in my Discord stuff. I'll post the Google Doc that I'm and sort of like just chat with people as I write the episode and have and stuff. So that'll be fun to do again. I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, that does sound like fun. I only get people to just kind of, on their own time, just kind of like read it and then be like, give me some, pointers or like, editing tips or whatever. So I've never
Yeah.
had like a live, writing session. That sounds kind
I
of
mean, that's generally what I do too. The live writing sets are, obviously for those few people who were dorky enough to think that it's like fun to do that.
right. Yeah.
Not making fun of them, obviously, doing it for them. But like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know that I would do it, but I'm glad that some people want to do it with me.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
So
getting
yeah,
to be maybe a part of the creative process kind of sounds, exciting.
yeah, I see the appeal on that
Yeah.
level. Yeah, and I'm glad it's fun, and it's not a lot of people, but it's people that I interact with regularly and who are familiar with my content and know my heart with all this stuff and what I'm trying to do. So I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I can do it better than streaming video games. Let me tell you, not a good streamer.
yeah, it's so hard to like have two trains of thought going, being like, I'm playing a game and I'm gonna talk to people and be funny
Yeah,
and
I always find whatever I'm saying just trailing off, and then I catch myself like, oh, I've been playing the game instead, as I say.
right.
So it's
Well, I think this is a good place to end our
sure,
conversation.
yeah,
I feel like we got a good how long? Hour 48. You know.
yeah.
Um.
I will say really quick, since someone mentioned this in the comments, I need to finish Death Stranding. I really liked it, and then
Hey,
life sort
yeah.
of interrupted it, and I need to get back to it
Death
because I
Stranding
found it
is good.
fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a certain type of game that I like and I appreciate, but I also am not constantly thinking like, oh, I got to get back to this. I really want to play this game again. You sort of have to bring myself to it, but when I do, and some of them are like some of my favorite games. Undertale was kind of like that.
Mhm.
I think Undertale I needed to go back and play it for some reason. And Death Stranding is sort of like that. Like when I'm thinking I want to go play a video game right now, I don't think immediately to the one where I'm going to walk
Walk a
across
lot.
the yeah, like it's not the kind of game that calls to me to play it again. to play it more, but I really like it. So I need to get back to it. There are a few around that time. I haven't finished Control either, and I really need
Oh,
to do
okay.
this. It's great.
Yeah. And it's Quantic? No. What's
Quantic Dream is
I
a
know.
very different thing.
Yeah, I know.
Remedy.
Yeah, Remedy. Thank you. Yeah, no. I
Yeah.
would never.
Yeah, and Remedy's games are always, at the very least, interesting and usually good.
Right.
And the only reason I had to say at the very least interesting is because of Quantum Break. So,
Oh, right. Okay.
oh, that might have been where that was coming
Yeah.
from for you. Yeah, okay.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, which, was fine, but
Yeah.
no Alan Wake.
But yeah. Get on Death Stranding. Super good.
I definitely back to, yeah.
I feel like you were driving around the mountains for your job, so I feel like this game probably might re-scratch that itch.
Oh, man, yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh. I hadn't even thought of that. Oh, boy.
Once you get a truck, it'll be like the same thing.
Yeah, oh, I'm looking forward to that. I think I got a motorcycle I played, but it's been a little while.
Yeah. You're getting there.
Cool.
Wait,
I'm looking forward to more. Kojima's fascinating, so it's,
Could you turn off and turn on your camera again real quick?
Oh, is it doing the thing again?
Yeah. I didn't want to say anything and cut you off, but
No, I mean it's fine. Let's see.
there we go. I just don't want to end on.
Oh, it's starting again?
Oh.
Okay.
We
Yeah, no, I switched it to the other way. I didn't know how to just like turn it off and on again, so I switched it.
Yeah. I
Weird.
just didn't want
Okay.
the send off to be two little blue squares spinning.
That's a good call.
But yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me. This is
no, it was fun.
yeah. I mean, so in like 2016 or 2017, I made a list of people that I wanted to interview, and I was like, I don't know if I'd ever be able to. Like, I didn't make videos at that point. I was a little small fry, and I was like, James is lit. He's on that list, and now 3 or 4 years later, so I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to give you a reason to check that one off.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, have a good, pleasant night. I hope your dreams are good and not full of anxiety from the real world. And yeah, go watch Games is Lit. An OG.
Yep, that'd be cool of you.